Why the hell is it so hard to relax while in college? You've earned your spot at a place that costs more than some people's houses. You have a coffee in your hand, a friend across the table, and a series on your laptop. Everything objectively should be fine. And yet, behind your sternum, that familiar Mario Kart's race that keeps this quiet insistence you should probably be doing something else right now. You are technically relaxing. You are not relaxing. I spent all 4 years at Cornell University trying to crack this challenge, not because I was unusually anxious, but because I couldn't make sense of the gap. Here I was doing the things that people do to unwind, and yet feeling more anxious than I thought was even possible. Like eating a meal and leaving the table feeling hungrier. What I eventually discovered is that most students are trying to solve an internal problem with an external answer. This points them at the wrong thing entirely. We try and do activities that are relaxing without questioning what actually makes something relaxing. It's why we can't seem to be in any activity at all. Because here's the thing, relaxation isn't an activity, it's a relationship. It's the difference between watching a sunset and mentally scheduling your to-do list while seeing it in front of you. Same event, but entirely different experience. I call the version where you engage in an activity for the activity's sake conscious relaxation. And learning it might be one of the most quietly radical things that you do while in college. Not because it's a productivity hack, but because it will change what you think you're even trying to do in college. So, with that being said, let's dive into why conscious relaxation is so hard to do so that we can unveil how to do it. The reason conscious relaxation is so hard stems from three profound problems. One, our false selves are defined by doing. Two, we think of relaxation as external rather than internal. And three, we don't actually want to relax more. I know, sounds ridiculous, but let's explore each of these to learn how we can consciously relax more. So firstly, problem one is our false selves are defined by doing. The root difficulty of relaxation isn't your exam schedule, your roommate, or the dining hall food. It's the self. To even get into college, you have to construct a self that is often identified with achievement, hard work, and comparison. We construct this self brick by brick into something that does. And this isn't inherently bad. It's what got us into college in the first place. The challenge arises when we survive this false self unconsciously. Self-survival in this context is the subtle and not so subtle ways that we keep doing at the center of our identity, even if we're supposedly not doing anything. The unconscious insistence that our worth is something we produce, not something that we are at our core human doings who occasionally malfunction into human beings. This is what makes relaxation so strangely exhausting. Some of us instrumentalize everything. Meditation becomes stress reduction. Journaling becomes emotional triage. Friendships become, God help us, networking. Being activities get conscripted into the army of doing before they even get a chance to breathe. Some of us go the other way by turning relaxation into a procrastination activity. You open up Netflix not because you want to watch something, but because you are fleeing. And somewhere around episode 3, the show that you're barely enjoying starts to feel like a character flaw in you. The relaxation activity actually becomes something that we feel bad about, that we feel anxious about. That is anxious leisure. Both are our false self at work, pulling the strings, because what we're really avoiding underneath it all is contact with something deeper, something that I call the true self. The true self, capital S, is not to be pretentious, but because it's generally a different order of thing. The true self doesn't reject the false self, rather it holds it the way a river holds a stone, and slowly over time smooths its jagged edges. Rooted there, you feel calm, courageous, compassionate, creative, more like someone who actually chose to be in the room that they're sitting in. I call this movement towards the true self the conscious college journey. And it's the map this entire channel is based on. But I won't pretend that the road there is comfortable, because it is not. Trust me. Your false self, that industrious little architect of your GPA and LinkedIn profile, does not want to change, because change feels like death. And in some ways, it is. The old self dissolving into something new is that old self dying, so that that new thing can emerge. So when you sit down to watch something and your chest fills with a diffuse, strange anxiety, that's not a personal failing. That's the false self doing what it was meant to do, to help you achieve, to help you get into college, to help you create a profitable career. So come to this false self with extreme compassion and love. Think of it like a friend. You wouldn't hopefully overly judge a friend for trying to achieve so that they can get a good career. You understand why they're doing it. Treat the false self in that way. It is not something to come to with disdain and annoyance, but rather something to be loved. And when you see it, it makes the restlessness feel a little bit less like a flaw and more like a letter from a friend who loves you and has absolutely no idea how to shut up. Which leads us neatly to the second problem, making it harder to consciously relax. And that is, we think of relaxation as external rather than internal. We assume if we do a relaxing activity, then it should be relaxing. Playing video games is relaxing. Talking to a friend is relaxing. Vacation is relaxing. And with this mindset, our relaxation problems stem either from not being able to do more of these relaxing things, or doing so much of them that it becomes procrastination and then we feel bad. The mistake, though, is thinking that relaxation comes from the activity. Conscious relaxation is rooted internally, not externally. Video games are not inherently relaxing. Like, force someone to play Stardew Valley with a gun to their head, and I guarantee you they're not going to be relaxed by growing their pixelated turnips. It's the playfulness that we bring to the video game that makes it relaxing. Talking to friends is not inherently relaxing either. We've all had conversations that left us more drained, more sad than when we began the conversation. And vacation. Don't get me started on vacation. If you want to see the physical version of hell, just go to a vacation trap in June or July, and you'll see all of the unhappy families that force themselves to go on this vacation together in the aim of bettering the family relations. Now, there's nothing wrong with any of these things, right? Stardew Valley is lovely. Friendships are lovely. Vacation can be lovely. Friday is objectively the best day, in my opinion. I have personally canceled plans so I can watch a television show on Fridays, and I would do it again. But the problem is, if the internal relationship to the activity doesn't change, the external upgrade just moves the problem to a nicer location. Right? You'll be sitting on a beach in Mexico, margarita in hand, ocean doing its whole majestic thing in front of you, and somewhere just behind your solar plexus, that familiar feeling. Because the beach did not fix it. You came to the beach, false self and all. So what unifies conscious relaxation is not the activity. It's our internal relationship to it. And when we mistake relaxation as an external problem, we foolishly prioritize external solutions. Of course, I'm not saying abandon these external solutions or don't do any externally relaxing things. I'm saying come to them with internal roots, which leads us to the last and third problem, because perhaps that's not the issue at all, but we don't want to relax more in the first place. And I know that sounds ridiculous. What do you mean I don't want to relax more, Aiden? I thought it silly myself until I really asked what it takes to consciously relax. True conscious relaxation means utter acceptance and love of the present without needing it to be any different. In other words, radical self-love. We can't accept the present for any meaningful period of time unless we love ourselves. Self-love is the root of being, the root of self-esteem, and the root of conscious relaxation. Check out my self-esteem video up above to learn more. The challenge is that fully embracing self-love comes from another identity statement. We are enough as we are. And that is something many of us students struggle to face. Because most college freshmen have false selves built on a foundation of deficiency. Not consciously, of course. I'm not blaming you. Nobody sits down in 9th grade and decides to organize their entire identity around not being good enough. But somewhere in the gauntlet of, AP classes and college applications, we learned that we are not enough and that we have to build and do in order to validate ourselves in this world. So to change by embracing self-love would mean dying to that old self, dying to the achievement, comparative, imposter syndrome, perfectionist self that we are. And that is terrifying. Much of the reason I was so scared to consciously relax in college was because I was such a productivity machine. At one point I was doing a YouTube channel, a podcast, a blog, had a girlfriend, doing 4 clubs, a full student course load, and creating a course of Sydney University with my business partner, John. So relaxation felt like it would just topple the whole thing down. And here's the terrifying thing is I was right. When I started consciously relaxing, I did become less ambitious. For a while, at least. I got some B's instead of A's. I sat on a Tuesday afternoon and did nothing in particular. But then what emerged was a different sort of ambition. An ambition fueled in the marriage between doing and being. An ambition which didn't sacrifice for my ability to relax alongside it. An ambition that allowed me to experience objects, relationship, classes without constantly peering through self-smog. Imagine a student simultaneously incredibly productive while at the same time able to relax consciously. That is beauty. Which begs the question, how can we learn to consciously relax? In many ways, learning to consciously relax is actually an act of selflessness. I don't mean selflessness in the kumbaya, let's all join hands, donate our money to charity, and give our homework answers to everyone sort of way. I mean learning to let go of your attachment to the self, which defines doing at the core of its identity. As you root more and more of yourself in simply being in your true self rather than doing, you'll be able to engage in any relaxation activity in a relaxation relationship. And warning, this could seriously make you less ambitious. It could lessen your motivation for schoolwork or certain friendships that are fueled more negatively. It could change you in ways I don't even know, and you don't even know. And all of this is a normal part of rooting more in being rather than doing, which you might not be ready for. And that's totally okay. If you are ready, though, there are 2 main things that you can do to consciously relax more. The first is build your self-witnessing ability. Root in the witness which experiences all conscious reality. The awareness which is aware of your existence, throughout your entire life. That being that is hearing the words that I'm saying right now without identifying with any of it, because it watches any of the identifying. And as you get into your witness, I want you to build the somatic sense of what it feels like to be doing oriented and what it feels like to be being oriented. Understand what that's like in your body. You'll notice you're almost never experiencing just one or just the other, but rather a rich dialogue between doing and being. And added onto that, these states can be experienced more through pulling in or putting out energy. So pulling in occurs through activities like watching television, reading a book, walking in nature. Putting out can happen through things like writing or drawing or exercising. And of course, sometimes pulling in can be turned into pushing out or vice versa, depending upon your internal relationship to the activity. But for simplicity, and this video isn't too long, we're going to stick to those definitions. So we're not trying to get rid of doing or being. That's its own trap. We're trying to merge being and doing together by navigating unhealthy doing. Unhealthy doing can come in the form of putting out or pulling in. So when putting out, it can make you feel a lack in the current moment, energized by negativity, shorter breaths, tighter jaw, tensed body, and scattered thoughts and feelings. Or you can experience all of the above, but in a pulling out way with more of an emphasis on apathy, boredom, and less energy. In contrast, healthy, selfless being merges doing and being together in both pulling in and putting out. So when putting out, it can make you feel complete in the moment, creative and courageous, energized by positivity, diaphragmatic breathing instead of chest or throat breathing. It can make you feel relaxed in your body even while exercising. You tense the muscles that you're using, but your rest of your body is relaxed. It can have scattered yet more of a sense of control over your thoughts and feelings, more of a sense of watching them rather than being attached to them. And when pulling in, it can make you feel all of the above, but in a more calm, tranquil manner instead of apathetic and bored. So the art of self-witnessing is building your awareness for all four of these states. Unhealthy doing through pulling in or putting out, and healthier being through putting in or putting out or pulling in. And if you feel a resistance to accepting what comes up, you can accept that resistance, right? You might not be ready to love the feeling of anxiety that comes up when you're not doing. And that's right. That's okay. You might not be ready to change. So you accept that the resistance comes up and you wait till another time to do it. And it's this self-witnessing ability that opens the way to the second part of conscious relaxation, which is journaling. And by journaling, I don't just mean journaling about your day. I mean journaling into level 2 journaling, reflective journaling, which is starting to ask how and why you're feeling certain things, how things that happened in your day affected you, how challenges and experiences are affecting you, and why they're affecting you that way. So here's some journaling questions, which you can use for conscious relaxation specifically. And I recommend taking one that you resonate with and coming back to this over time as you're ready for more. So firstly, why is so much of your worth wrapped in doing? And what do you fear would happen if you valued being more? What things do you do right now for the sake of the thing itself? How can you build or deepen a mix of pulling in and putting out conscious relaxation activities into your college life? How might you be able to turn your non-relaxing activities a little more conscious into a little more conscious relaxing activities? And then what normally collective activity can you do completely on your own during a weekday, like watching a movie, playing video games, or going to a restaurant, all alone, to learn that aspect of just being for the sake of being? Don't fall for the trap of making conscious relaxation something that you try and build consciously for, because otherwise it becomes another thing that you're doing So you have to let go of even the need for conscious relaxation to work out. I know it's a little paradoxical in that way. But doing these two things paved the way for an incredible transformation for me. Because when I started consciously relaxing, it was one of the more quietly devastating experiences of my life. And, not dramatically, nobody was hospitalized, of course. It was more like watching a very tall sandcastle that I built for years get approached by waves. And then one afternoon, I look up and the whole thing's gone. Because the tower that I built from conscious content creation schedules, deep work blocks, and a truly unhinged relationship to my Google Calendar began toppling down under the integrity of just quiet self-love. And for a while, I overcorrected magnificently. I got B's in my classes. I did nothing on some Tuesdays. I took walks with no productivity podcast playing, like a 19th century romantic poet who also had a YouTube channel. And it was really disorienting. But what emerged on the other side wasn't a lazier version of me. It was a version which could blend being and doing together rather than warring. Ordinary activities, classes that I used to white knuckle through, conversations I used to have to half inhabit while mentally composing to-do lists, they started carrying a different texture. Not perfectly, of course, but the ratio shifted, and the shift changed everything downstream. You don't have to earn the right to exist in your life. We are primarily human beings, not human doings. And conscious relaxation is the art of remembering that against every instinct that your false self has cultivated for you to have to do in order to deserve existence. But you can be, even on a Tuesday, especially on a Tuesday. That's it. If you enjoyed this video, I think you'll love my College Freshman Cosmic Journaling Kit. It's a free gamified journaling system that helps you build your emotional intelligence, your self-understanding, and your purpose, as well as learn to consciously relax more with 1,000 journaling questions and 5 templates in just 15 minutes a day. So check it out in the description below. That sounds good. As always, have a fantastic rest of your day. Eat some peanut butter, and bye-bye.